Welcome back to the show. We're about to learn the secret sauce. What's up, Brandon? How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to see you not on Zoom because we normally stuck in Zoom
The
or in
square
Slack.
boxes, yes.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, you're our first OpenSauced employee to be guest on the podcast. So how does that feel?
It feels pretty good. I don't know. I don't know if I should have wore the T-shirt. I guess with the pizza on it, but
We don't pay you enough for that.
I
So
know we're keeping it low key today.
excellent. Sponsored by OpenSauced. But yeah, so I wanted to actually talk about your open source journey. So like this podcast is about secret sauce, finding about journeys, open source. Like what is the secret sauce for folks? And everyone's got a different journey. So I love actually start with like, what are you working on today?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I'm working on today is Analog.js, which is a meta framework for Angular, which everybody asks like Angular is already a big framework. Why does it need a meta framework? Well, I think there's some places we can improve there and kind of take it to the next level. Plus, meta frameworks are hot right now. So,
Yeah. What's a beta framework though? You got to explain that.
right. So, a meta framework, from the definition I've been seeing is a framework that stitches the pieces. It's built on top of another framework. So it takes those different pieces together and stitches them together in like a cohesive way. So if we think about like how Angular is, it has like routing, it has forms, it has server-side rendering, but Meta Framework to me is kind of like a set of features that in addition to that. So it has like file-based routing, it has like API routes, server-side rendering, static site generation, all those things which you can do in Angular today, but you kind of have to piecemeal those things together. And
Okay.
Analog kind of package that up in a very cohesive way, and it's like I call it, I give it a lot of pitches. I call it the Next.js for Angular, but it's Next.js Nuxt, similar to those other frameworks, meta frameworks, however you refer to them.
Yeah. So what's wrong with Angular then? Like why not just use Angular?
Yeah, there isn't anything wrong with Angular, but I do think there
You
is.
could be spicy.
Oh, I can be spicy? Okay, cool. I am here to take over the world with this meta framework. But seriously, like I said, Angular is a great framework on its own, and it's come a long way. Even though it gets a bad rap sometimes, they have definitely made strides within the framework. And I'm just trying to enhance that and take it to, like I said, the next level of being able to build some of these things in a nice way that people can, they get the stability, dependability of Angular, but they can still say that, I don't have to piece all these things together to like ship something quickly, or if I want to ship a static site. There is a contingent of people that want to ship static sites and apps with Angular. Not everybody's building at Google scale, so being able to ship something like that has been pretty nice.
Yeah. So how long have you been in the Angular community? Like since the beginning, probably?
I got into the Angular community. It's been over at least 8 years now. When I got into the community, when I first got in, it was still called AngularJS at the time, so it was AngularJS 1.6 or whatever, and they were kind of winding that down, and then Angular 2 development, which it was called back then, they were calling it Angular 2, but eventually just came Angular. But around that time, that's when I got involved in the community. I was doing back-end development at work, and we were using AngularJS on the front end. And so my friend Mike, who has worked on some open source stuff with me also, he was the lead at the time on AngularJS, and he asked me if I wanted to get involved, and I was like, sure, I'll try something new, build some stuff on the front end. And so I got involved in that. Then we got involved in basically open source Angular, and things kind of skyrocketed there through different projects and things like that.
So anyway, sorry, I was like trying to figure out my transition statement. I'm like, oh, because you said skyrocket, and I'm like, oh, there's a
Yeah.
NASA joke there. Um, but we didn't talk about NASA yet.
No, it didn't.
Wait, you didn't work with NASA, did you?
Yeah, I actually did work.
Yeah.
That's where I started working with AngularJS. We were working at NASA at Marshall Space Flight Center. We were actually working for building some applications there, and that was one of the jobs that I worked there. We were building web apps, supporting the NASA safety and mission assurance So we were actually helping them do their job, which was
Yeah.
to where I lived. We're really big on known for rockets and things like that. So we were supporting people to build the rockets to send people into space. So which is pretty cool.
Just small work. I used to I used to mentor at a boot camp, and I made the joke all the time for the folks I was mentoring. It's like this hit push to GitHub. We're not shipping rockets, so like it's not that serious. Push to production. There you go. But in your case,
Yeah.
legitimately shipping rockets, man. That's quite some work to be working on.
Yeah, it was definitely fun times I had doing that work and also doing other work in that industry. Being able to, we were doing a bunch of cutting edge stuff because in that particular area, like I've always enjoyed working on these smaller teams that are like very like agile. We get to kind of ship stuff quickly, and we were able to choose our own stack and things like that. So it was definitely fun times.
Yeah, and so like the Angular community, then I mean, even now it feels like there's a lot of big corporations using Angular. And so like they're pretty cool with like the way Angular works. And
Hmm.
like now we're in Angular 18. So like it's been around for a minute.
Yep.
So with analog coming in the mix, like who's using analog?
Yeah, it's been pretty wild. Like in the beginning, when I was, trying to get the meta framework together, it was, hey, I just wanted to be out there, get people to use it. So it's mostly like people in the community building, trying it out, building their personal blogs with it, which I've really found rewarding because uh, to me, it's like a cycle. We've gone through this a couple of times in the Angular community where people build a tool to help people build static sites, and then that tool kind of falls by the wayside. And then there's all these people who have content to write, things to share, but they don't have a way to do it because their blog is basically outdated and they hate maintaining it now. So uh, allowing people to ship things like that helped those people to start getting back in that cycle of writing again. And now we're getting to the point which I've talked to some people that are introducing analog into these enterprise environments where it's traditionally Angular apps, and they want something that they can build with quickly to build a static site or to go along with to build like a landing or marketing page to go along with their applications that are built with Angular. So, instead of them having to look into other ecosystems, now they can build something with Analog and Angular to help them continue to kind of keep it in house per se. But yeah, it's gone from small community projects. Now I'm talking to people who want to bring it into their enterprise stack and everything, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. So like are you so going back to the question with Angular and like that community, like what's the reception been from the Angular team to analog?
Yeah, the reception has been great actually. I'm still in communication with the Angular team. I meet with them regularly just so that uh, people in the community know that we're not like I'm not fighting against the Angular team. They're not fighting against me. Like they're actually trying to help Analog be successful as far as from the framework perspective, where they can build these kind of tools and things to help what I'm trying to do, make what I'm trying to do easier instead of like in previous years, it was like you had to do a lot of weird things and maybe hacks here and there to try to get things working because Angular was a lot more rigid, I would say, in how they wanted like the ecosystem to be or how they wanted the stack to be. But it's gotten a lot better since then. Because I wouldn't be able to do half the stuff that Analog does if Angular had not evolved and moved into a space where it was a lot more flexible. So
Yeah, and so in that flexibility, so we had Evan Yu on the podcast, and he was talking about like Vite. So Vite's like what's powering a lot of this
yep.
under the hood. So I think every meta framework except one
Hmm.
is now using Vite, and like the last one is Next.js that's not using Vite.
Yep.
So like, what's your take on like you obviously you chose Vite for your
Yeah.
project, and it seems like what their previous slogan was like the next level build tools for JavaScript.
Hmm.
I think that was what it was for a moment. It might still be the actual tagline for it, but like, do we see everything centralizing around Vite if you want to get in like this next level situation for front end applications?
Yeah. Vite has definitely taken the ecosystem by storm, I believe. And like you said, practically every meta framework out there has kind of landed on using Vite like in a more holistic way. Even Angular itself, they use Vite as a dev server, and Analog kind of takes that a step further and uses it as a dev server, like a whole build tool, kind of embracing the Vite ecosystem as a whole. And part of part of what kicked off like me starting Analog anyway was uh, everyone kind of saw what was happening with Vite, and like Angular didn't have a space to operate within the Vite ecosystem. So I wanted that. I didn't want, like I said, Angular has had this I don't know, this stigma of like enterprisey, slow to move, that sort of thing, not necessarily incorporating well with a lot of tools and things in previous. But and I wanted Angular to have a space to say that we can integrate with Vite, we can use these tools, we can basically stay on the cutting edge. And that was part of why I built Analog to on top of Vite, because it unlocks so much more than just me building Analog itself and saying it works with this. Just by integrating in with Vite, it unlocks other ecosystems, which Angular didn't necessarily have access to, and the Angular community didn't have access to. So that was one of the motivating factors of why I wanted to build with Vite and to open up a lot of other things there.
Yeah, so I mean, I find it fascinating because I got to see as a consumer of all these like meta frameworks and tools, because I previously worked at Netlify where we just used all of the stuff and made sure it worked, and then got wind of Vite pretty early and started using it for some side stuff. Well, all the stuff, everything I do is side stuff at this point. But then I ended up connecting with Evan pretty early in the Vite trajectory, where it was like right before it was 2.0, and like the demo blew me away, which is like the thing I always wanted, which is like back in the day, back in our day, we used to put up HTML pages and like to start putting like style tags and everything like right there in the HTML. And like what I love about Vite is I can do that with Vite, and like I can piecemeal an Angular, or I can piecemeal a React or an Astra or whatever it is, and I love that a lot, because again, a lot of stuff I put out in the open is not meant to be put production ready. It's just my side stuff, my projects, aside from OpenSauced, obviously. OpenSauced is now maintained by wonderful engineers like yourself. But like, I guess what I'm getting at is like, we're having another cycle of what was old is now new, and now you can actually go back to the HTML and use an Astro in a Vite. But I forgot what I was getting at. But like, basically, like, what do you think the next step is? Because like we have Button as another opportunity, which is like a wider net of like things that you could do. So do you think there's like more innovation happening within the space?
Yeah, I think so. I think Vite has definitely shown that, because like I said, a lot of tools are integrating around Vite, like the Vite ecosystem. And I think that in a way it allows like framework authors and other people to innovate quicker, because they don't have to worry about all the tooling. They don't have to worry about all the rest of the pieces in addition to building the framework that they want to use. Like the biggest example of this is like the Remix, where they had their own custom build setup, and they saw where the ecosystem was going, and they decided to pivot and move to the Vite ecosystem so that they could focus on innovating and building more cool features into Remix. And I feel the same way about the rest of the ecosystem. Like, if you don't have to worry about how the build stitches everything together, and you want to build some like new cutting edge features, or like we're like you mentioned, we're back in this state where everything old is new again. We're rendering a lot more things on the server and building a lot more features there, and Vite is like enabling people to do that quicker, and so that we might get to the next cycle of innovation with things like Quick, or where they're just doing something totally different as far as how web apps are built. So just being able to iterate on those things quicker, I think just helps the ecosystem overall.
Yeah, and like talked about the Angular community as well, because like the assumption I've always had is like there's folks who work at Google and they work on that framework. Is that still true today?
Yes, there is the Angular team at Google. Yes, that still exists today.
Yeah, there's not a lot of community contributions happening on Angular, or is it all in like basically plugins and infrastructure?
Yeah, so there is there is a community of people who like I'm in what's called the a GDE, which is a Google Developer Expert. So we all of the people in GDEs they contribute to the ecosystem in one way or another. And then there's other groups like Angular collaborators where they kind of work a little more closely with the Angular team. That like they're not Googlers, but they are people that they've been around the community for a while. They've invested time into contributing to Angular, and they work, like I said, work more closely with the Angular team. So it's not just they even take contributions from the community. If people are willing to put in the time, and because Angular it's a mature framework, it's been around for a long time. There's a lot of infrastructure around it, so you do have to get familiar with contributing to it. But there are opportunities and people do contribute that are outside the Google team.
Yeah, like I know. So Sarah Drasner is on the Google side and like
Yep.
oversees like a lot of web stuff, infrastructure there. So I should probably have Sarah on here and chat to find out more what she actually does. But my next question is like, okay, there's Angular, but then there's also Lit, and then there's I actually, can you explain the announcement at the last NGConf when they were talking
Yep.
about I don't even know what the announcement was. It was very confusing.
Yeah, so Angular is open source project. It's been out there forever. Google has another internal framework called Wiz,
Wiz,
which
that's
is what
what it was.
it powers Google Search, it powers uh, Google Photos, like all their traditionally like high performance websites and applications are usually powered by Wiz. Wiz is like laser focused on performance. Everything has to be as fast as possible. They're doing a bunch of cutting edge things that have been at Google for a long time. Uh, but the developer experience of Wiz is not as what Angular's developer experience is. So they've been kind of talking about this back and forth for a long time about bringing Angular and Wiz closer together. Now, the announcement that they had at NGConf made it seem like Angular and Wiz were merging, which isn't necessarily the case. From my understanding, is that they're borrowing ideas and they're doing more collaboration between the two projects. So uh, there are some things that are in Wiz that aren't open source. So they're going to bring some of those things into open source through Angular, and so Angular gets better as a result of that, and Angular gets these new features, and like partial hydration, resumability is something that's really big in the ecosystem now. So it helps Angular improve along the way too.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's good context because I didn't know about the distinction with the internal and Wiz and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, a lot of people had never even like heard of heard of Wiz itself, but and I've been around the community long enough to have heard what it is, and I've talked to a few people that have worked on it or have worked with it. So yeah, it's been around for a while, and they've always talked about kind of whether those two things were actually going to become one project. But I think it's more of a sharing of ideas and collaboration, which is exciting too.
so we're never going to see Wangular.
I'm not going to call it that, but we'll see what happens. There's already been a number of names I've thrown out there. Are we going to become the Wizards now or whatever? But we'll see.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw a couple hot takes at you, and I just want to get your response because
Sure.
I think we can. I mean, Angular has. You even touched on it. Like Angular's got a different flavor to the community. Like folks have a reaction. Like a lot of folks who have never used Angular
Yep.
have a response of like what they think about Angular.
Yep.
So question to you: you got 24 hours to build a web app. What framework are you reaching for?
But analog, of course. No, if push comes to shove, I'm choosing Angular because it's my framework of choice. If I got 24 hours to build something, I'm familiar with the stack. I think you can build something quickly with it. But like I said, if I'm trying something today, I'm doing analog because I've like chopped off half of what I would need to do to get set up and running.
So if you had 24 minutes,
24 minutes.
would it be analog?
Yes.
Next question: why does Angular suck?
What does Angular suck? I don't know. It sucked for a long time, but they're now trying to fix that. No, I'm just kidding. Angular has evolved a lot, and the people who say that it sucked back then, you can't change some people's opinions, but
Yeah.
I'm excited about where it's going and what they continue to do. So
Yeah, I mean, the real, like, I also started AngularJS at a company in San Francisco. And then we saw the transition for Angular 2. And at that point, we're just like, we're not moving to Angular 2. Like, we're going to try to get profitable. We're going to work on the product.
yep.
So, like, at that point, a lot of startups ended up getting burned of like, we don't have the team to go, like, set up on meetings, become a GDE and stuff like that. So we ended up going to React. So I guess my question for you is like, do you feel like that Angular ever has another chance to like be the darling framework within an ecosystem, like what React is today and what maybe something else is tomorrow?
I've always said that I don't think that Angular will get back to where it was prior to like you said, that whole situation where Angular 2 came out. A lot of people was like, we don't want to rebuild our entire, or if we're going to rebuild our app, we might as well, evaluate other tools. I don't think it's going to get back to that particular place where it was prior to that. I do think that there will always be like a contingent of Angular apps that are out there that are being built and maintained. And I think that Angular will still continue to evolve. I think that's the biggest thing is I'm not really out here trying to chase mindshare of React developers to convert to Angular. So if they want to use it because of where they work or things like that, that's usually how people are coming into Angular these days. But I do think there's opportunity there for people to teach Angular in other spaces that they weren't looking at it before because of that like prior situation. So I think there's opportunity there, but I don't see it hitting like a hyper growth stage or anything like that. I think it's a mature framework, and I think they're going to lean into their strengths going forward.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate you leading into this conversation and answering my questions, and also appreciate you just coming on board to OpenSauced and sharing your expertise with the team and with our framework of choice, Next.js.
Yeah, I've enjoyed my time here, and I'm looking forward to building more.
Cool. Thanks. Well, folks, stay saucy.